No. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. What is the time? How close was that? That was quite close, wasn't it? I think we were just debating if we would get smack on the time, and I don't think I did yet again. Well, what should we say? What should we say? Where should we start? Let's talk to Bruce about the elections because he is the kingmaker, and let's see if you've made any kings this week.
Yes, well, the mayor, the mayor we had last time, he was elected with a 60% majority of the votes cast. He got 60% of them, but after a lot of hard work, the public has been turned around, and they decided they didn't want this mayor. So that 60% was cut in half. He just got 30% of the vote this year, and he still gets back in because the rest of the vote was split, which is kind of a condemnation of this first past the post voting system. We should have single transferable vote or preferential voting, but we don't. So we've got 3 more years of the same, which is people. I went for a walk downtown the other day, and people were just so peed off and angry. Some of them were angry. A lot of them were just disappointed, and a lot just frustrated that this is the world. That New Zealand's worst mayor, officially ranked the worst mayor, gets re-elected.
Shame. Well, he's got to find that playground. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. He's got to find that playground. It's probably
in his own backyard, to be honest.
No, careful. Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah,
shame,
probably.
Man. Well, so not very likely that you'll be back on the airfield soon.
It depends, because we've got a bunch of new councillors who some of them look like they're quite switched on, and if they can just basically form a group large enough that he is disempowered. Because previously he's had his little coven of followers who have formed a majority in the council, which meant anything he wanted to get done, he got done. If he cannot form that coven of support, then things could still change.
I like that quote there. It's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. It's very good. Not heard that one before. Very good. Right. I've got only a few things to share. Let's start with this one. DGI appealing. Well, that's not going to do a lot of good. So, yeah, obviously we're counting down fast, and I can't believe that today I've seen people posting videos saying, "Oh, newsflash, new thing. The FCC are going to go after all the clones as well." Well, I think we heard that was in the wording a little while ago. We knew that was coming.
Did you watch that video by 51 Drones, I think he calls himself? He's saying that, don't worry, it's all good. We've got these parallel, these alternatives, but that's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen. And we've known that for a while.
I think it's just inevitable now that this is going to happen. People just need to be prepared in any which way they can. And but I think that there's still a few initiatives out there that are saying that they want to be saying that they want to have the part 108. So everyone should get in and get ready for part 108 because the DJI drones were being left out. So people should be concentrating on the part 108 for DJI drones. And you're thinking to yourself, I think there's more important things that people are worried about right now rather than part 108 and DJI drone. It makes you're not going to have any DJI drones to fly part 108 at this rate. So why are you worried about part 108? Why isn't everyone concerned about pushing the politicians and pushing, especially, and I hate to say this because I'm not going to name names, but all of these all of these associations in the US, we know who they are. All those associations by the people who do nothing, the people who are representing those people, and they're doing absolutely nothing. But they're running around saying part 108, you should be commenting because this is going to be the future. There's no future. It's over.
Part 108, it's as we saw in the Amazon drone crashing into a damn crane or whatever it was. They're not compliant with the 108 requirements to have a effective detect and avoid system. We don't have that. That is not available yet. So until that comes in, based on what the FAA is saying about Part 108, there won't be a Part 108. Even if there is a Part 108, nobody will be able to comply with the requirements.
Yeah. I think also what happened there as well. And Bobby, mate, I just seen Bobby.
He's there. I've sent him a link. He needs to come in and defend his corner. Yeah.
I don't think that they are having these IDs on the obstacles of a certain height. So
Yeah,
whenever
that'd be
there's
right.
going to be like a crane and stuff like that, they're not putting the IDs on there, so it's not showing up as a NOTAM, and it should. So I mean, I do agree with the detect and avoid, but I do think that there's a fault on the other side, that they didn't know that there was going to be these obstacles, because we have that. I mean, we have that in Europe. I think we have that. There he is.
There he is. It's everyone's favorite American to bash. Oh no, sorry, Bobby. Did I say that out loud?
He's just,
Ooh, I shouldn't say that out loud.
Okay, that's
and
right.
he's just come back from Germany as well. So he'll just
Okay.
have lots of Frankfurters and stuff like that. So.
I love or not. I remember thinking, holy shit. I actually weighed myself. I got back. I was like, man, I don't really drink alcohol, but they drink, it's commensurate, right? When in Rome. Yeah. I have to say, there's many people that I had met digitally that I've never met in person, including all 5 or 4 of you. Hopefully I get to meet you folks in person. But it's also interesting to see how many of these American or Europeans are just like, oh yeah, the Mini 5 and like the M400 and the Mavic 4 Pro. It's like, realize it, right? And it's kind of interesting as somebody who, does this professionally and learns about the technology. It's so strange that it's like you're breaking the law, essentially trying to get your hands on something, right? And that public really relies on this product like immensely. But it is what it is. I have my own thoughts on this. This is like, I think we all agree that DJI makes the best drones. I think that we know that none of these bans dissuade China from continuing to make great drones, or DJI and Autel alike, continuing to dominate. I learned at Intergeo that the Dragonfish is like half the price of what it used to be. It's like I don't know, under $70,000 US for the nice one. And it was more than twice as much when I worked there. And I remember, and even then it was untouchable. And then you start thinking like, wow, for 70 grand, you can get a Dragonfish. And like, not for personal use, obviously, but for your police department. But more importantly, if you are a, broke dick country, excuse my language, in the developing world, and you want SUAS capabilities that are equivalent to the West, you can buy them for pennies on the dollar. And this whole like, I personally think that the inevitable is going to happen is that it is delaying America's entry into the global UAS race and allowing a lot of other countries to catch up and even exceed. I mean, the UK, and first of all, I think the Harmattan drone, no offense to folks at Harmattan, actually, yes, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves selling those FP weren't even fully assembled. And they were using Chinese components at that, right? And listen, like as a guy who also sells drones to like defense departments, et cetera, and kits, I think there's a level of like, how do we say this? A level of finesse and reliability that your product has to be in order to be sold to those end users. And it's like not really just about, it's not at all about making money. It's about providing them with the best capability for the price. So the UK is serious about this stuff. Europe is serious about this stuff. And in Germany's case, interesting to see how much, those countries are spending. I will tell you this, a lot of this defense capability, quote unquote, is still built on stuff that Bruce has been talking about and the guy from Painless 360 and a lot of open source, stuff. And I forgot who this was. It was one of the folks maybe the Rotor Riot or maybe Joshua Bardwell. The days of going and flying these drones in the park for fun are like, they're slowly coming to an end. You're not gonna be able to do this anymore. Small and tiny as light as possible. If you have access to some DJI, HD units, great. But this reminds me of like the whole ZTE Huawei thing back in the day. Now, if I definitely don't doubt the claims that there's some backdoors, obviously with Huawei and that shit. But like, they made some pretty cheap phones that were pretty good. And I know many people who had them, and I assume they're still continuing to make great phones outside of people are probably buying them in droves. And the irony of like seeing the DJI MIMO app update with and sync with a bunch of Huawei health data. Here's something I would say. I've been very, very skeptical of the DJI security. I think they actually are valid, straight up. there's a lot of stuff that people have been saying that I thought was ridiculous that in the end like has self-manifested. One of them is that, man, just like TikTok, just like all this other stuff, and just like this platform, etc., it's meant to gather information on people and learn things, right? And they're training a bunch of different types of models. And of course, DJI Mimo and the DJI app might be doing this type of stuff to some degree, whether it's the government's, likely, obviously, the government's finger on that. But man, you're telling me that Skydio, that received funding from In-Q-Tel, the arm of like the CIA, like isn't probably doing the same thing with their stuff? Obviously, the best corporate espionage tool in the history of the world. Like, are you kidding me? You know what everybody's talking about, thinking about talking about potential collabs, etc. This platform is able to gather that data. So, and in the end, it like change companies building great stuff, building great technologies. I just don't think that America has like the best products that I've seen that the West make. And let me just say this: Skydio makes a very good product for what it is. I actually think the X10 is the best American-made drone. Actually, for like in terms of like quality and volume, etc., I'm going to give them that, no doubt. They might be the MySpace to the Facebook and then the TikToks, etc. There will be others because Moore's law applies, and I'm interested to see what other people are going to do when they come in and they make their own solution for pennies on the dollar. Because man, back in the day, it was expensive to like have a laptop. Now it's cheaper to have a laptop than a cell phone, and I do see this huge price of compute, autopilot. This whole is going to be the small little blip of confusion. So I don't know.
But the thing is, Bobby, is that when you have so many companies, and there are probably hundreds, if not a few thousand companies in the US right now, where all they have is DJI drones, and that's all they have to use, or that's all that their clients want them to use. And when you obviously there will be conversations about what shall we do and all the rest of it, but they've already made that investment. For many companies, they cannot, they don't have the money to go and reinvest into a whole new, let's say infrastructure and all the rest of it. So so I mean, why isn't the government actually concerned about the possibility of many sectors, including like the power lines and all the rest of it, and like solar, that this is going to be lost?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest with you. I'm not the right person to ask. Probably, if you would have asked me a year ago to share my opinion about things like this, I probably would have been a little bit more open. I'll put it that way.
But they've got a couple of years to run out their old gear, as long as they haven't crashed it, haven't they? I mean,
but I think that's the thing, is that there's a fear now because they don't, they can't replace. There's no way to replace. So when anybody that's serious about our industry, a year ago when this was tabled, they should have started looking hard at NDAA, and they did for a little while. I can see it in the searches, the way people arrive at SGS News. You can probably chart the various stories and associated panics when government proclamations are made. But they should have been studying hard rather than just wishing. And you alluded to, or you mentioned the associations earlier, rather than chasing after those people that promised them something that was probably unlikely to happen. They should have been concentrating on what they were going to fly. Yeah. But I mean, also at the same time, when the companies that you're delivering the data to, I mean, from our perspective, we don't choose the drones that we want to fly. The companies that want the data from us, actually dictate to us what we should fly. They will say to us, we want you to fly this drone with this payload, and we want you to deliver this data. And we go, well, but how about we? No. If you want the work, you do this drone and you have this. So, and I know there's a lot of companies that are in the US, a lot of drone companies that are doing work for European companies. And we don't have that issue here. So if you start going down the line of, well, this drone might not be there, well, they'll just go, okay, then we'll get someone else. So there's not really a conversation there,
Yeah, no, I hear you. I just
So, fortunately, there are, I mean, this sounds terrible. There are alternatives, but they're just more expensive. And it doesn't help, doesn't help that there's an absurd tax on Switzerland for some reason when it comes to tariffs. So like Wingtra is getting just spanked as a result because the price goes up.
And that would have been my one of my go-to recommendations if you said, "Oh, get yourself a Wingtra." Oh yeah, then the tariffs.
Yeah. And then you've got, I mean, there are. Imagine, and okay, I'm a Mac user, and I know people who have like considered quitting their job if you took away their Mac and forced them to PC, take away their iPhone, go to Android, etc. It's a similar type of thing. Using something that they don't want to do, whether it's like, or a SharePoint, let alone like hardware. And I think that this is something that's very limiting. I do think there's opportunities. I think, who knows, maybe there's a way to try and leverage DJI to build in the United States. FreeFly is based in the United States, in Washington. Also, I should really mention there's a huge misinterpretation of what is considered NDAA compliant. I recommend manufacturers explore this a little bit deeper. So yeah, UAS Nexus through our partners, so we initially have been helping companies get on the list. We have been working with partners to actually do some of those assessments ourselves for the companies that we don't work with. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. But I will tell you, many people are coming. Almost everybody shows up with like some bit of Chinese stuff, and then you have to tell them, hey, you don't want this, you want this, you want this, and it costs money. And depending on who you go to, there's unfortunately 9 different vendors, etc. I personally don't think everybody needs Blue UAS. I think what you need is NDAA compliance to a certain threshold. Cheat code section 848. That's really is the threshold here. Everyone goes for things like 889 and whatnot. That is not NDAA compliant. And I've seen many drones. A friend of mine today of a drone using a Chinese, a controller that is not NDA compliant with as part of this, proudly made in California, no CCP parts, etc. They're using, Chinese chip in this controller, and it misleads the customer. And in the end, there's a lot of like e-waste and stuff you can't really use. It's the lack of this. It's a regression of the hobby because earlier in the I learned from Bruce and Bardwell and so many other people of like, here's the right kit to use. This is the right stuff. This is the stuff you shouldn't use. And then as a whole, we start to build trust in the systems and the technology and all that stuff. That is regressing because like a lot of this you won't be able to get anymore. And there are no longer solutions. And then you have these like closing off of ecosystems. Someone yesterday, and this is no rub to the ArduPilot or open source community, but we have this pizza chain called Papa Murphy's Take and Bake. It's a little bit cheaper. It's like 80% the cost of regular pizza, but you have to bake the last bit yourself. You take it home, you put it in your oven. I used to date a girl in college. She did all the marketing for Papa Murphy's. And I remember expressing to her my poor experience because like that shit didn't work out for me. And she said, yes, the problem is there's so much variability in these ovens. And even though we make it perfectly like idiot proof, people still fuck it up. Excuse my language. And that is the case with open source. You give a lot of these people the tools to do what it is they want to do. And the implementation of these tools is like, you didn't read the recipe, did you? You're going to go buy Trigil and these other poor folks in their time because you didn't like read the manual, if you will. And I think that this is, you're going to see this. I believe you're going to see a big burst of drone companies in a little bit and a bunch of like need for some consulting services and then the sweeping consolidation that erodes not just consulting, but more importantly, the small firms that like don't have this richness of integration. You've got companies like Ondas who are sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars. You've got Red Cat, Unusual Machines, and then you're seeing this. Yeah, this is the moment that people have been talking about. Oh man, drones are going to blow up. Like the money is already here. The problem is just who is going to win. And I believe that the people with the most money are still sidelines, the defense primes, and a handful of energy companies. Because the energy companies have the resources, Chevron, Shell, etc., to build their own drone. And, they can contact a firm like any others who have the resources to build them something that is as competitive as good, if not better than what currently exists. And then the question is who's going to come out with a better flight controller? With we know Philip's going to have like this the Node and the Red Cube and maybe here Link 2 forward, and then it'll be further disruption and consolidation. Who can integrate those parts better? And yeah, until someone comes, I don't see. anybody catching up to DJI at the current rate and trajectory, unless there's enormous disruption in components and the prices that allow the vehicle OEMs to have the margins to survive. Right, like radios are 25% of the bill of materials, sensors are almost 50, GCSs are like 12%, it's like it just dilutes your margin. The thing that you make yourself as a platform OEM, unless you're DJI or Skydio, is like very little, probably single digits, especially in the defense space. So and the volumes aren't there yet. Everybody says the volumes. So sorry for the rambling. I just had
No.
whole week, and I look at companies like in Ukraine. Bless these people. First of all, they're fighting for their lives. They are selling thousands, tens of thousands of drones. Guess where those parts come from? China. And that's okay. A lot of the parts, not all the parts, but it's just what works. And I keep thinking about, like, we have boosted the Chinese drone industry inadvertently through this conflict. And I don't know if the West thought that, oh, you got to buy our stuff. Not really. They're going to buy your stuff. They're going to tear it apart, take the parts that they want from it, and build their own solutions. And the level of proficiency that these folks have had in the short amount of time is unreal. There are components in Ukraine that I've seen that like exceed the price and the capability of what's in America. Now, the one part is like it's in Ukrainian and it's a pain in the ass to integrate, and it's like super technical because these people are brilliant engineers building products for other brilliant engineers.
But they have a sandbox, but they have the ability. They have the budget, so they're getting money,
No doubt.
getting the equipment. They can do what the hell they want, and they are, and they're doing it well. But they're not like companies here where they have a budget and it's all, I'm not really sure, and they're under constraint. But when you're on, when the Ukrainians are on the field like that, they can do it. They have the freedom to do what they want, and they're doing it well.
So there's this company, I won't say there, but they make a very rugged product. They call themselves, it's like the Mavic of the Ukrainian battlefield. And these folks were explaining to me that the Mavic only survives like 25 missions, 35 missions or something in Ukraine. And theirs is like way more robust, way longer. And then I was like, hey, I don't want to be rude, but like, there's no way the camera is as good. And they're like, no, of course the camera is not as good. Like, we would love to be able to have that capability, but there's nobody that can do it. And then we're talking, there's other vendors, et cetera, who kind of, you talk about who they're going through and you're just like, interesting. Bruce has talked about those products, and this commoditization is also, it goes both ways. Our friends in South Africa who make the best, in my opinion, laser rangefinder in the market for the dollar have all of a sudden come under some scrutiny because it's like, how dare they stuff in the Shahed? It's like, first of all, that shit's the best. Of course, if I was Iran, I'd be putting that shit in the Shahed all day. And this is why it's important to control your supply chain, because when you start to sell through sales channels, some guy says his name is Mike Smith, but it's not. His name is Hamid whatever, and he's sending stuff over to build Shaheds. And this is in like South Africa and or in Europe or whatever. It's difficult to own. And I remember giving Randall Warness a ton of I was like, hey man, we work together at Autel, and he'll talk about this too. I'm not going to speak for him, but he's very transparent. I'm like, dude, are you worried about our drones being like misused? He's like, man, like, me, like, I think people are responsible beings, but there's no way to control how someone's going to use your product nefariously, just like a car, right? And I don't even think Randall owns guns, right? But from a practical perspective, these drones, these toys, there's nothing Bruce knows is better than most anybody. The products that he's been showing on his channel for the last decade, all of those can be used as weapons of war. Not intentionally, but it's just like what has happened as a result. So to take things move things a little backwards, like our adversaries have this capability to do things in a way that we aren't able to do, and at a price and a scalability, and it's disruptive. And so I'm very bullish on counter UAS. I think that's going to be the next big thing. I hope more people. I think that's where the real money is, and I think you're going to see, fusion of counter UAS and surface vehicles and UGVs and whoever figures out how to stop these fiber optic drones, slicing them, cutting them up, throwing these little autonomous things that chops them up. Who knows? They'll figure out something else. It'll be fully autonomous solutions without any fiber optics. I don't know, folks. It's something that I keep thinking our hobby is being taken away from us.
Well, I was funny you should say that because I was going to ask.
Didn't I
Well, so the hobby part of it
to hop on this, but it is something.
But the hobby part
is something that really
Bruce can speak to that because I think the hobby.
For you. I just am saying that if you ban DJI, it doesn't solve the problems I just talked about. None of those things are gonna stop, right?
Yeah,
we don't anymore.
Yeah, I think the hobbies. I don't know, Bruce. I beginning to think it's had it.
Yeah, I can tell. I've been looking at a lot of YouTube channels. The amount of YouTube content relating to the hobby has just fallen off a cliff. Many content creators are not making content or much content, or they're pivoting, and it's like there's a sort of malaise has fallen over the hobby because the hobby has moved into a high-tech era where we've all got flight controllers and FPV and things, and that of course is all now war technology. It's all it's all battlefield technology. And I was thinking of doing a video actually, just wondering if maybe it's time to drift us back to those halcyon days of balsa and film and model aircraft that look like model aircraft, not like drones. And I think it's the only way we'll save things. It's certainly in the US because now we've got all these import restrictions. I mean, see, China just imposed a new levy, or they've got controls, even greater controls over rare earth. Anything that contains rare earth, they've established greater controls on. So the US has reacted in other ways. So even if you're a US manufacturer, you're going to have to make your own motors out of rare earth materials you source elsewhere. It's the hobby is going to need a major restructuring. And I blame a lot of this on the hobby bodies, the national representative bodies, because they've just gone along and just been tumbled by regulators and things, never pushed back. And they're not prepared for pushing back the kind of pushback we're going to need, because I honestly believe that at some time in the not too distant future, recreational multi-rotor drones will be treated like firearms. And yeah, you can still fly them, but they'll be very, very rigidly controlled where, when, and who can fly them. Yeah. And it's just going to completely take the fun out of the hobby. You might as well take up, shooting, because it'll be probably easier to use a gun than a drone. And unless we drift back to the old, thermaling with gliders and things like that, we are really going to be displaced out of the space that we're using right now. And so, I'm gearing up for a summer of thermaling myself.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. It's the
I'm going to say, I'm not. Next, you'll be saying, let's get a ball of string and a stick.
Oh, hey, that's a good idea. Good idea. It's a project video on that.
Well, I guess I haven't really thought too much. Sorry, after you, Bobby.
I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I think in Europe, despite you guys don't have the FCC, power output, it's like you don't have remote ID. I was going to say in Germany.
They do in Europe. Like it's coming to England in January.
We do have it in Europe, but it's not being treated the same way. It's like we have remote ID, but let's just put it under this quilt and we'll leave it. And
that's a nice, lovely, warm quilt, is it? It's a lovely goose feather down, and you just put it under the quilt and
got remote ID. But let's never mention it. Never mention the fact we've got remote ID. It's a secret.
Yeah. Also, I really believe this worst, like someone else mentioned, it's like, why does everything have to be a weapon? I agree with you, and I also at the same time, unfortunately, drones are kind of like the Colt handgun. But it's not drones, it's robotics. Like the value of robotics is going to transform the world. It's not just for weapons. Like I think this is just a little blip in human history. We're going to figure out how to have things clean in the air and allow us to optimize like farming and fighting wildfires, basically adapting to this environment that is becoming less hospitable and our aging population. And this is fundamentally like where all of this is headed. And I actually think that that's going to be more valuable than NVIDIA.
What you're saying is basically we're all going to need a robot to wipe our asses.
100. And it's true. I mean, you look at the challenge in an aging population. Increase, like we're going to use robotics is going to help us build housing, right, at a lower cost, so we can reduce all of these challenges. And I think what's really impressive that we don't realize is that the developed world's trying to like move towards this adaptation, but the developing world is rapidly accelerating and is ascendant at a velocity that 1950s America, man, like it's on a level that is wild. And I haven't been to Africa, but I meet these people at these companies, they from these other countries who have resources, very advanced mapping service program. There, Kenya, South Africa, places like Vietnam, all throughout Southeast Asia.
We can lip read.
Yeah. It's beginning to get worse, Bobby, as well. I think.
Yeah. But with all these robots, so the big problem is you'll have all this wonderful automation of things, but where are people going to get jobs? Who can afford to buy a new house that's made by a robot because you don't have a job?
Well,
There's a very downside to this.
The government plan for that is a robot tax, so that the robots will be taxed the same as a person. But we'll have to see how that all works out.
I think that we are hurling towards a. Can you guys hear me better? Less audio.
Yeah.
I think that we are hurling towards like a future that we haven't crystallized yet in our minds as a society. Like we don't think of like how this is going to impact things. And I look at, I don't know, I imagine people thought about smoking and like that diet drug fen-phen and all this other newer weight loss, whatever. Insert whatever's happening now. Hopefully it's not some Horizon Zero Dawn thing. That's like probably worst case scenario. But I truly think that the robots and AI in general is going to usher in this concept of universal basic income. It's really difficult to kind of like conceive. And I think more and more it was this thing that we like, it's something that many countries are going to have to recognize. And
if you don't adopt, you will die.
Also, remember,
if you don't adopt, if you don't follow, if you push back on everything that is, I'm not saying that we just have to accept everything and whatnot, but I mean, I do agree with you, Bobby. I do think that is the way that it's going to go. But you have to follow the trend. You have to jump on the bandwagon, because if you don't, you'll be left behind. I don't think it's going to be like, that we're going to sit back and there's not going to be much happening because everything's going to be doing it for us. But you have to be involved. You have to, be there. If you want to be involved in it, then do something.
We can aspire to be a third world country. But the problem is
America's fast tracking it. But anyway,
we don't need money. No one will need money because you'll own nothing and you'll still be happy.
Yeah, this is. I think. Yeah, who is this? Who said that? And you'll eat crickets or something like that.
I've got my job sorted. I'm going to be a robot hunter. I would track down a
robot hunter. But I have a feeling you're going to lose that one.
I do think though that like it's important for us to look at robotics as a way to adapt to the world we live in, because then it's not just about UBI. It's like, all right, we all have the opportunity to increase our quality of life in a way that impacts our communities. Like the great equalizer is robotics. And I hate this. Like I look at Figure, that they, oh, wow. Something that loads the dishwasher. First of all, I think it's pretty game-changing, doing laundry. We all love those things. Then you see what Unitree did, right? And then you see that they're selling this Unitree at Walmart for like a 50th, 70th of the price. It's like, what are the Chinese cooking up? And what are they doing to improve their like billion person population to adapt to the future? They got their own problems. I think this is just delaying the inevitable. At the end of the day, it's just a reorganization of the world order and our country. I'll do whatever I can to make sure to delay that outcome or prevent that outcome. Hopefully it never happens in my lifetime, but China has been very, very, very powerful and very ascendant. And I think there's people in my country who like, I've never been to China, and I'm not narrow-minded enough to realize that it is a very advanced place, and that it's very diverse. But people think it's just like this. People think it is like, no offense, Gary, sub-Saharan Africa. People think that it's like not advanced. So I don't know, man.
Well, I think you say that you say that sub-Saharan African thing, but what you got to remember about the African population and why it is perhaps advancing faster is as opposed to the West. It is a younger, it's a younger population. it's a generally younger population, and so they are moving. They are wanting the things. They are doing the stuff. All the big companies that are here, your Microsofts and Googles are in Kenya. They've all got their main offices there, and they want to, they want to crack on. They want to get going with stuff, and to a certain extent, I think they feel that they've missed out. They want some of this. They want some of this fancy looking lifestyle now, and they're going for it. So yeah, it is happening. And perhaps, if you're still coming out of really proper poverty, proper poverty, then you're gonna work your way out, and they're not as complacent perhaps as youngsters are in the West, because they have everything given to them in effect, and yet they still feel hard done by, and yet
they're probably not doom scrolling either.
No, they're not doom scrolling. Well, no, there's nothing wrong with that thought either, is there? If you haven't got access to all that, you've got time to think about other things. You're not
but don't worry, the world's fixing it. Under 18s won't have internet access anywhere soon. The way things are going, age gating the whole damn thing. Old people that don't understand new problems.
I was going to say, Bruce, there's this company called FTW Robotics, for the Win Robotics. They kind of fill that gap where the Tello left off for like STEM.
Yeah.
I'll connect you with their CEO or something. He'll send you some of their stuff. You want to check it out. It looks like a Tello. They have their own little kit, but it's NDA compliant. And
wow,
the whole crux of this was like the guy is not a drone guy. He used to work in a completely different industry, and he's a very interesting guy. But his daughters were, he was interested in the curriculum his kids were learning, and he's like, man, there's like no robots. What happened? And they're like, yeah, we can't really use like Chinese stuff. And he's like, what? And so they built this kind of alternative that it's as expensive as a game console, so it's not cheap, right? But like the idea of like getting your child interested in something and then leveraging other open source technologies. You're seeing young kids doing incredible stuff all over the world, and yeah, I'm very excited to see this like next generation of engineers and innovators and thinkers and at the end of the day, if you can like give them access to the tech and bring it all comes down to accessibility, whether it's cost or like country of origin bans and shit like that. You give people access to technology, they can do really incredible stuff, and
they can.
Yeah,
they absolutely can. With my teaching hat on.
I will say this though about the DJI thing. I will see it, like it might be inevitable, etc. One day it might happen. It's not happening yet. There's a lot of there's a lot of things that can happen to kind of push it aside and delay it. And the security concerns for public safety, I don't think is an issue. If you're a person, like it's not a problem. And you can, it's not a problem the way they're saying. If you're the military, don't use DJI. I think it's that simple. But we still should have access to buy the tech to see what's going on, especially if you're to not be able to buy this hardware. If you're doing R&D to do competitive analysis is absurd. You know what I'm saying? Like just that alone is like, whoa, right? And the fact that it becomes criminalized to kind of even to like access this stuff is frustrating. And then I do see the other problem, how this sets back, truthfully, a lot of public safety programs. It's really terrible. And I don't know enough about the inspection. Like, I do think it's going to completely destroy these small operations of people that were entirely reliant on like DJI product only. But the mixed fleet thing is, I think, the future of like everything, whether it's public safety, mapping, defense. They all can't be one OEM. And this whole interoperability of how you control them and like management, et cetera. It's like, it's exciting to see how the tech's going to evolve. I will say also this, I don't know if you bring this up, but Auterion, I feel bad going after them because there are a lot of smart people that work there, deeply respect the contributions that their CEO has done for the industry. But I look at that type of product and I look at that type of approach, and it's like they're trying to do the Papa Murphy's thing. But they're like, you have to use this type of sauce. And you know what? You have to put pineapple on your pizza, which is like one of the most controversial things we as Americans think about our cuisine. And they're forcing it upon us in the drone sense, right? And if you really want to use Auterion, you got to eat that pineapple on the pizza, right? Or
I'm confused by this because pineapple on pizza is excellent.
I'm glad you think so.
Okay, Ian. Ian.
Just stop there. Stop there. Someone that wants to fire fireworks off drones can't tell someone off that wants pineapple on pizza.
When have I ever fired a firework from a drone? Never in my life.
One thing I will say about
I'll let you
OpenSpace,
off then.
and I feel like in some ways guilty like talking about this, but like
Okay, guilt away.
the same, like it is so global, this distribution of first of all, this industry is it's one of the best things about it is that it's so globally distributed all over the world. Nobody cares about who you voted for, etc. You just care about making things fly or float on the water or run on the ground autonomously, and we love each other for it, and we share these ideas, right? The diversity of thought is very important. At the same time, there's this little element of like governments kind of weaving their way into this community and trying to like use these tools for their own applications, and rightly so. But it does also go both ways. And so the more and more I think about it, it's like we have an advantage in the West from our ability to like think freely, speak freely, and just like the flow of capital to like invest in this type of stuff. Like this is fantastic. Our inability to kind of invest in those areas and to strengthen those ties is frustrating. I look at a company like Cube Pilot who makes millions of autopilots a year, right? And let me tell you, the Cube is not for everyone. I work on a lot of really small stuff where the Cube just a little bit too big, right? The Node might fix that. It's a different conversation. And I'm also like I got a couple of here links. We use them for our own personal projects. But like the fact that there is not some sort of like infrastructure being built to facilitate a HereLink 2 coming to market within like the next 12 months is crazy to me. It's like, oh wow, we're all here, bleeding ourselves dry using these other types of solutions that might be overkill or insufficient, and then you have this increased fragmentation. And I have to give credit, the guys at ARC have done an amazing job. Like literally, they proved me wrong incredibly, but they make incredibly high quality stuff. And guess what? They do support for both ArduPilot and PX4. And this is something that I've recognized. Like, it's funny because like the whole rift between him and I was like, oh, you shouldn't create your own ecosystem. Well, he's like, you know what? Fuck you, Bobby. And he did prove me wrong, right? He pulled it off his own ecosystem in a way that's like dual support. And you pay for it. Like it's quality. It's made in America. But I keep thinking like, the fact that this person was, first of all, it's not just because he's exceptional. He is exceptional and their team is exceptional. But the fact that like we need to have like 5 at least like folks that have this interoperability and their own ecosystems that work, whether it's modal AI, whether it's Cube Pilot, etc. And we're not doing that. I look at the money is going to like AirVironment, and again, bless them. They make good product. But like that's not where the money should be going to. It should be trickling down to these smaller subcomponent companies, whether it's payloads and radio links and these other things. Like the price has to come down as well. And like, and you're right. You're right, Tim. To be honest with in this case, yes, the ARC product is made in America and it is extremely high quality, and you pay for it. And it's the same thing with the modal AI stuff and other autopilots as well. Like there's this premium that comes from. Is it better than Chinese product? No. Right. But depends on the Chinese product. There's some high quality Chinese products out there as well. But the consistency, like, and as Americans, we have this like trust when we buy something that like it's kind of has to work or else we'll move on and find something else. Right. We don't have that diversity of availability of components. And I look at like FPV, man, like Team Black Sheep, right? Trappy was the dude who was like holding up, him and I guess the guys at Immersion RC, but Trappy was holding up this industry for a long time. Like whether it was the Crossfire and all the other components he was trying to build. And I look at, and also shout out to Tony from IRC and now Orca for doing a lot of the same things, but also with the rapid fire goggle module. But these are two companies that were basically the only folks out there for quite some time until the Chinese OEMs started to come in and pop up, and like where there was HGLRC and iFlight and Cadix and all this other type of stuff. And it started to be this it was always a small little niche hobby because you didn't have that many vendors, right? And now you look at it's the fastest growing segment in drones by the widest margin. It sells the largest volumes of any other product outside of the consumer DJI stuff by the widest margin. It's nuts. There are people selling tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of these FPV drones, and it's all for defense now, right? It's not like people were just doing this as like toys and ripping in the park. So, and I think we have to be honest with ourselves of like those bottlenecks are like it's still pretty basic. And so I'm very excited to see new companies pop up, particularly in the West, for the sole selfless purpose that I can still buy their stuff. Like we need. I look at the OcuSync 4 unit for DJI. That thing is a wonder. Like there's nothing equivalent to it in the West. Period. Full stop. Like I don't, and not just performance, just like that whole thing does the encoding, the camera, all of it, and for the price, it's just unreal. So I keep thinking someone's going to come up with it and see the void, and we're going to just fill those gaps. And that's probably good. It's just that us as end users, consumers, folks that like flying it, probably should build something that you love. Stick with it, fly your drones and don't crash, right? And then look at other ways to, support your own bespoke vendor, whether it's a platform or a tech stack, and just enjoy what you're doing. It's like fly fishing, right? It doesn't have you don't have to get crazy with
it. Bobby, you were in Frankfurt last week. How many counter UAS companies did you see, and was there more than you were expecting?
So there was almost no counter UAS at Energio.
Really?
There was quite a bit of drone stuff. So CHC Nav, this Chinese company that I think is competing with Tremble, they make some interesting product. I think they're going to be releasing some stuff. Yellowscan had the most impressive drone booth because they had almost every vendor there. It was very nice to kind of show. They kind of showed off their integrations. There's a few brands I'd never heard of before, like this brand out of Hungary called VTR. They make like a tail sitter like Wingtra. Oh wow, no, I didn't see that. Maybe I should check one of those.
They were in London, but there was quite a few in London actually, and I was quite surprised, but I know you were in Frankfurt, so I was just wondering if there was much there,
No, this company VTR that is mapping. It's like a tail sitter like Wingtra out of Hungary was new. Company out of Portugal, Beyond Vision. I don't know if you heard of them. They're Wingcopter. Sorry, go ahead.
When Wingcopter, they're a great company. Dan's just saying why we're not talking about the similarities between UTM and CUAS. That is very, very topical. And I know Altitude Angel's being sorted out this week, but the more important part of the puzzle that they held was they identified traffic and tracks in the air. They had a database of known tracks because it's all very well seeing everything that's in the sky, but if you don't know what's friend or foe, then you're already on to a bit of a loser. So UTM CUS, there's a very great similarity. And today a company stood up in the UK to start selling RID receivers for cities and councils. Oh, deep joy. Here we go.
Who was that?
Oh, I was so angry about it. Hang on, let's see if I can find it in my history.
But we know who friend or foe is because we saw the FAA video that showed us that RID told us that.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's all right then.
No problem.
Oh, well,
imagining
my own fault. Imagining stuff.
On that topic, Gary, you need to give Richard Ryan a nudge because we're running out of time for anyone to do anything. But I think it's a travesty that we're not deciding on what to do with the ICO because I think there's still a case that people should probably write in anyway. But we kind of need somebody in the industry to give us a nudge one way or the other because it's on this one. It isn't for me to say. On some stuff I know and I can say, but on this I can't. But we're just no one's doing anything. And if someone's already now doing a product to scrape the data and to potentially misuse it against people, then it's all the more reason for people to think, hang on a minute, we need to say something before it, before it really is too late. That said, the ICO has acted after stuff's already been implemented before today, so it's not like it's off the cards if there is something that's going on that shouldn't be. But I do think it should have always been questioned. But yeah, maybe if you can give Richard a nudge to at least, even if you can say
I did nudge him. I did nudge him last week, but and we did post the letters that perhaps people should do. But yeah, I know.
Yeah, that letter doesn't cover the privacy side, and I think that's the only side where I can see us really getting somebody jumping in there to at least ask the right questions, because that's always been the biggest issue with RID, was just the abuse of privacy that's there.
Drone Ops in the UK, the word about consequences. I think we should have our own app that scrapes the data and rebroadcast it for ourselves. Time is running, so I did want to get an important thing in before we go, because I think regular viewers will realise that we're big on our product reviews, and they've got a product review here well, let's see. Let's just play it and see.
This is the VT35 from EHang, the Titan Sub Skyward sequel, with batteries buried in the frame like OceanGate buried their safety concerns, glossy on the outside, potential fireball on the inside. Perfect for when you want your commute to end like a billionaire's bad bet. So that's my rather mean introduction. But let's have a look for a moment. We have a craft that looks very much like, kind of looks like a GA aircraft to an extent. So they would have done that deliberately. It looks quite professional. But the way the investors are going, ooh, next generation. On X, going tap, 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 tap. All like, almost like bots they were. They were like, oh, isn't it brilliant? All my shares.
What's happened?
I don't know what's going on there. Has Gary dropped off?
Yeah, I think so. He's frozen.
Yeah, well, I'll clear up in that case, I'll clear up with what was going on there. Yeah, the EHang, obviously, the VT35 has been announced this week. It was based off, the prototype was the VT30, and they promised 300. Was it? I'm trying to think what it was. They promised now. It was 100 minutes flight time, which has now dropped down to 60. And I think it was 300 kilometers, and now it's 200 for the distance. But what they have done, which they didn't mention, is they put cockpit lighting in now, so you can have it green, or you can have it red, or you can have it blue. So that kind of makes up for the loss in distance, apparently. But obviously, you have all the people on X, which is horrendous, because everyone that seems to like EHang just happens to own the shares and wants it to go. They go, it's the new Tesla of the future, of the sky. And it's like, no, well, it's really not, mate. So the shares rocketed up from $17 to $18, so they're all rich now.
I wouldn't see that as rocketing; it's more like a slight decline.
So they've been waiting for this for years, thinking it'd probably go up to over 100. But yeah, the market's obviously seen it and not been too impressed, because over a year ago we've got competitors. Obviously, they're more expensive, a lot more expensive, but they have got the rotors where they will go to vertical position, so it's very efficient. And here, they built again something that's essentially a multi-rotor, although it's got a propeller on the back, which then thrusts it forward. So it's a lot more efficient than their previous design, but that isn't saying a great deal, because the previous design wasn't even the least bit efficient. So it's an improvement and a step forward. But for me, knowing the history as we do with EHang, which is not exactly filled us with confidence. For me, I'm not impressed by it. I'd be surprised if it ever got certified over here, because you're supposed to have 20 or 30 minutes contingency, aren't you? So that you've always got some reserve there in the battery for something to go wrong. And if you're chopping that off an hour, and you've got to go to somewhere and get back again, it really isn't all that great a distance. So
I think they are requiring all passengers to have power banks so that you can plug them in. Just to
That
give,
reminds me of something that kills dentists.
just to give. But actually, Ian, that's the second time I've watched that video, and of course, there's not many people in here who will know what I mean. But I'm sure Gary will.
More awkward silence. Probably should end. I need to leave. Appreciate you folks,
Bobby.
Great
Bobby, I'll
seeing
be
you
in
all.
touch.
We'll see you
Okay,
soon.
Bobby, I'll be in touch. Okay. It was like an episode of Jack and Ori. It was like an episode of Jack and Ori.
is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
Well, it is a bit of an institution, you know what I mean? So
yeah. I just felt that I'd have a bit of a laugh because I don't normally go and review something, and with people as they do on X, just jumping on things and people invested in things they don't really understand. I thought, well, I'll have a little bit of fun of it and point a few things out, and then at least if nothing else, it gets people thinking, or they could jump in with comments back, and it might get me thinking. But I'm, well, we all know that the eVTOL is an unproven market, and for me, I trust something that's a bit more proper, aviation grade.
I commented on your review. I told you off.
You did.
For being such a cynic.
Bruce, are you now a shareholder?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. I bought all the available shares, put my money into that, sold my gold reserves.
That's why it skyrocketed to $18 there, isn't it?
Exactly.
Especially though now with Altitude Angel, with the problems they've had, unfortunately, which was actually that was just purely down to they were doing the right thing. They were just shooting for the stars with the Arrow Towers. They had that ambitious aim with it, and they wanted to see that to end. I think they got to like 99% of the way through where they needed to be before it all turned pear-shaped. But it does make me think, do people really know where the industry is going in future? And by that I mean like your regulators and such. Have they just been, pushing these dreams that aren't necessarily going to work out all along while ignoring the rest of the market that's there trying to work and trying to evolve? I guess time will tell.
Indeed.
Is Gary still? Is he still broken?
I think he's still with us in spirit.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Oh, he says he doesn't have admin anymore.
I don't. That's me. I used to have admin, but I don't have that anymore. So I don't know who's going to close it down.
Oh, okay. I've got some access, so I could try, but we're not closing it down yet because there's more things to talk about. So we should talk about this week that the Europe thing continued on. So it came out in the wash, and let's see. I wonder if I can put a link up here or not. I'm not used to the presenting side. How do we do a presentation thing? I have no clue. So you'll just have to take my word for it. There was a new story that came out. The good thing here is it's been very different to what we've experienced in the UK, and that journalists are actually querying and asking questions of governments and the authorities, being very sceptical, as they should be, about the narrative around drones. Oh, you're back. Oh, in that case, I'll put the thing in the private chat, Gary, and then if you can say that.
Gary, if you wouldn't have come back, he'd have been on till 4 o'clock in the morning.
I know.
Yeah. I know. Sticky doesn't want me to stick around, but I had to get back in. I was just
writing you a message there. Gary, come back.
Don't know what I did there. Right, let's get this link up. And then
but anyway, stepping back for a moment on the RID thing, I think Mr. Stickland there was suggesting that a lot of the UK drone industry aren't happy about RID, but they're scared to say something because we know that our CAA isn't particularly welcoming of people having opinions. So I would probably agree that would be the case. But moving back on to the RID thing. So it's come out, and this is quite interesting, actually. This is one of my posts has got 12,000 and 12,400 views, which I wasn't expecting. But Norway, all its airports are protected by Aeroscope. And this wasn't the funny bit. So they've got Aeroscope on there, but they haven't even got it locally connected. So the airport staff can't see what's going on and if it's detecting anything. Instead, it all goes back to China, because that's what you do. You get your airport and you connect it up to China, because there's nothing that could go wrong about that, especially when you think the Russians are hovering around your airport. There's nothing there that could go wrong at all. So anyway, so they've got all the Aeroscopes connected up to China. And the moment they thought they were seeing these Russian drones, obviously they weren't, because it's just complete fiction and they were imagining it. They were running around panicking, and the whole Aeroscope system for the entire of Norway is down for 19 hours. And this is apparently not the first time. It's at least the third time that the whole system's been down. And nobody's thought, this is a bit rubbish. So really, they've got a whole system that cannot do anything about drones that are being imagined. Isn't that reliable anyway? And you could argue that you're potentially putting your entire airport network at risk. They've suggested that it was segmented, i.e. it only had access to the internet and not to other systems. But we've already got their word for that.
I would like to add here that I had a conversation yesterday with someone who shall remain nameless, who had seen the recent LinkedIn conversations that we've been having, Ian.
Okay.
And someone actually preferred to reach out to me personally rather than comment. And the person was saying about what was happening in Norway was that, and I quote what he said to me, right, was, "Oh, but this is all because the Chinese have got a kill switch and they just purposely switched it off so that it couldn't, so that nothing could be detected."
Well,
Yeah, I think that's I do genuinely think it is nonsense, but I think it was off well before they thought they'd seen a drone anyway, to be fair. And given that it's happened a few times, yes.
So that is the bottom line, isn't it? It's just Aeroscope is not a solution. That is not the solution. And as I said, I also did an interview on this thing. I said to them, they said, why did you think the military didn't react in Germany? And I said to the bloke, I said, well, because the military didn't see anything. There wasn't anything there. There was nothing to react to. So that's why they didn't react. The military systems will be able to see all manner of stuff and hear all manner of stuff. What's terrible in that's happened, as we all know, is that vendors have gone out and sold gear that isn't joined up in any way. There's no coherent system. If you have a line of airfields or whatever, why aren't they all connected and using each other's data and extending the sensors reach and all these other things? But the military have it. And in Denmark, especially, bloody 100, what was the highest point? It was like 140 meters or something, wasn't
170,
it?
I think.
It's 170, that's right.
Yeah.
It's flat. Good radars. Bruce knows his radio stuff. Good stuff will be looking across the bloody Norway and everywhere. So it's all a nonsense, and it's coming home to roost now, isn't it? We're seeing this bollocks, I'm saying it, coming home to roost. So here's a company that's set up. Go on, Ian.
Yeah, I was going to say the worst thing about that story was the I think it was kind of like a state company. I think if I'm not misunderstood. But anyway, the company that was supplying that rolled out the aeroscope, their mitigation in all of this was, well, we were a lot less crap than the rest of Europe, many of the airports of which have no protection at all. So I thought, well, that's not a very good, reflection of airports in Europe. If the best we can say is everyone else is more rubbish than us, even though we're being very rubbish at this moment in time. And especially when we look back to all the malarkey we had with Gatwick, and that's now going on for 7 years. There's no excuse for all the airports not to have a system in place. Like you said, Gary, if you're doing the entire country, you could have it all connected up together. You'd have the purchasing power from buying in bulk where you could get it cheaper. But that's the trouble is you've got all the airports buying separate systems, even in this country. So probably people aren't getting the benefits of cost. It isn't all really connected up. And we're still doing this thing of saying, oh, this is a danger on one hand, and on the other hand, doing bugger all about it. So somebody needs to decide. But it's so expensive when we're closing airports down for nothing being there. And
given there's nothing there, couldn't they just repurpose all those old NATO bomb detectors?
Yeah, exactly. That's what Sticky was talking to. It's the NATO bomb detectors.
To be fair, Bruce, really, aeroscope's acting like that anyway, isn't it? Anything that's looking for a drone that's not there is as good as a piece of cardboard that's pretending to do something. We need.
Well, look at this website here. Because look, we are late now. We better move on. Isn't this flipping familiar? We're in the Wayback Machine, and this is what I've even forgotten the name of them. What was one of the first?
No flight.
ATM.
Are you on about? Which was done by
Air Maps. That's it. Bruce remembers. Oh, HR, Harry, and your brother. I forgot your brother's name. Hope you're well. But yeah, we are straight back to Air Maps with this. Monitor your airspace, takeoff and landing. And what have we always said about RID? It puts the position of the bloody operator out. Takeoff and landing, geographical position of the pilot, historical data, drone identification, real-time tracking, real drones.
And it should have a big banner at the top that says, because bad actors always use RID.
Sensors. So, yeah, they're not actually telling us. It must be an app or something like that. A sensor network, monitor large areas simultaneously. Our sensors use drone remote ID, DRI. Do we call it that? We don't call it that. We don't call it that, do we?
No, it's actually direct remote ID. So it's direct.
It's mandatory in the US from March 16, 2024, and the EU from January 1st, 2024. Technology legislation has progressed that enables you to roll out a network. Roll, R-O-L-E. Have I written this? I must.
So when somebody invests in the system, everyone should roll up with sub 250 grams and buzz their corporate headquarters, and they'll be, why the hell aren't we picking it up? Because you don't need remote ID on sub 250s.
But
look at this, it's military grade.
But it's like it's like you were saying, Gary, about these UTMs and how they are in a sense detecting, but they're not really, because if you don't have remote ID active, they will not be able to find you. Exactly, will not be there, and so and they're saying that if someone wants to fly a sub 250 in, let's say, a U space type area, you need to put on a remote ID module because you don't broadcast remote ID with a sub 250. In Europe, anyways, in Europe,
it's Back to the Future. It was air crap all over again. We've seen this play before. Some people will be mug enough to buy it. I'm just disappointed that we're seeing it play out again. And if I was clever, I'd have to go back to some of the things we said about AirMap more than 10 years ago on this very stream.
If anybody buys that system, then I'd be tempted to send them a bill every year for lease of your airspace. This is your airspace. You've got to pay for it. It says on the app it's your airspace, and it doesn't come free.
No. Let me quickly put some other things on here. This one, if you're in England, this one is actually a little bit worrying, and I took some time to decide what to write about this, and I did call out the police. So do you remember we had the large TDA for Islington 2 weeks ago, I think now, that went away quickly, and then a small one, this one size came back last week. Now this week, and I don't think they flew last week. Now this week it's come back again, but last week's you could fly in the area, it'll be okay. But this week, if you're in Islington, you can't fly in it. Now I've emailed the police, I've emailed the CAA. Nobody will tell me what's flying in there, and is that airspace created for the safety of their airspace users, or is it and has it been created in coordination with the NPCC, and what mitigations have they made for, I think it's a matrice thing, isn't it? I think it's 1.1 kilos. So what mitigations have been put in place for flight over people in what is absolutely a densely populated area? And if we were to look at that European, there's that map, isn't there, of population places. I guarantee, well, of course, England's not in the EU, but that would be solidly in it. I mean, where else are they flying these platforms over a city in Europe? Nowhere. Yeah, nowhere. So
I'd be tempted to pop up a drone and see what I could find.
Well, absolutely. Well, if you live in Islington, watch it. See if you can catch a 1.1 kilo drone if it comes down. Look, I mean, the technology is good. I get the idea and all that sort of a thing, but I'm not sure they should be able to get away.
What
get away with that.
I find bizarre with it again, it's marketing over reality. And if you look at the Dock 2 and Dock 3 and the matrices, all the adverts have it pouring with rain over it, right?
Yeah.
They do a few videos where they literally go up and pour a bottle of water over it, but that isn't proper testing. Now, this, so I've done some digging. So these are the factoids being thrown at you now. Fat bombs. The Dock 3 is tested, screwed shut, and then blasted with water to meet its IP rating.
Are those the ones that take off from the Russian submarines in the harbour, you know?
Must be.
But the IP55 rating, you need a 3-minute test with water, over 3 minutes. So it could be 3 minutes and 1 second, and you pass the test. And to compound this further, DJI explicitly do not warranty the drone for being flown in the rain. So what the hell are we doing? Putting a system out to fly over people 24/7 potentially, but the own manufacturer says you don't fly it in the rain. I'm absolutely genuinely puzzled.
Yeah, another one. Oh, blast! That wasn't slick. I was supposed to then go put this one on.
You can't be stopping yet. I've got another link in there for you to click.
Oh, have you? Oh no! All right. Well, we'll get to that one. This one, I don't know if you can see it, dear viewer, but can you see the green area? That's the area that they've got approved to fly this helicopter in, and it's bigger than Switzerland. So that's in Australia. So some behavior loss is happening.
The helicopter's bigger than Switzerland.
It is bigger than Switzerland.
Cool.
Oh, piss off. The MOD is spending for a great extra company on from the West Country, just down the road from where I'm from. So good luck to them, but 4.17 million doesn't seem a great deal. And then
I'd have done it for 3.
You'd have done it for 3. This one, did we all see this accident? Did we see this one? This was quite interesting. This was the good old-fashioned handing over control to another unit with one of the switches being in the wrong position. So the switch on the other transmitter was in the kill engine position. So when it got in range of the other transmission, down it came. And I thought what I wanted to point out here we are, this was what they thought, that the cause of the accident was identified as a software bug in combination with a loss of synchronization between remote pilot and the safety remote pilot, whereby the safety remote pilot's hand controller remains set to the disarm position when the aircraft was taken off. Yeah, no,
That's
that
not
is
software bug. That's operator error, then, isn't it?
it's operator error.
Yeah.
It's systems training.
It's a
and
wetware error.
procedures.
Wetware.
It's a wetware, exactly. It's a wetware. Now I've got to link. I've got to get his link, and I've got to worry that what
I've
it's
already
going to
forgotten
be.
what it is, but I'll remember when I see it.
Oh yes, I know what you want to talk about. Oh God, here we go.
What?
Yeah. Well, you know.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
there's a
yes.
drone.
So we don't need to see all this again because we've seen it other way. But I just thought, given that Stephen had covered this before, I dug some more into this, and it's Bob on. So Stephen had said he thought this would be a police drone, but we've never known because the police were completely silent. No press release, nothing. So all we've got is a video and speculation on it with people saying, "Oh, ridiculous hobby user." And then, oh yeah, actually, someone had jumped on Stephen's LinkedIn recently, and he's going, "Oh, I bet it's one at Plane Spotters." And I'm thinking, Plane Spotter hasn't bought that joke because even I didn't recognise that immediately because I didn't know Autel had done stuff in a grey like that. But that's actually a commercial Autel drone that costs over $5,000. So your Plane Spotter hasn't bought that to go and get some video while he's sat there with his camera. Now, it just turns out, after doing a little bit of investigation, that the San Diego Port Police had just bought themselves a $5,500 Autel, that model. That model is pre-RID, so it is breaking the law because it's not transmitting RID. It doesn't have the module on either. And it just happens the San Diego Port Police are based 0.4 miles away, and they're the police force that gets called into the airport. So I think that's a case of Sherlock Holmes, job done.
There you go. Obviously, they're recruiting from Canada.
Probably.
Yes.
No, naturally, I used the SUAS News email for their press office to ask them if it was their drone, and they went radio silent. Whereas the main San Diego police, I asked them and they said, "Don't speak to us, speak to the port police. It's not for us to comment on another agency."
They know themselves it's not theirs. They know it's there. And but I said that. But this, I mean, the behaviour of that drone flying it there so arrogantly. It's not going to be amended.
You could tell it was arrogant because of the way it was twitching.
Oh, you can tell. You can tell. It's just you know that's going to be the authorities that are flying that. And
the annoying thing with that is, if that had been a hobbyist, there would have been all the press releases out. It'd be, "Oh, dangerous, dangerous, dangerous flyer," and because it's almost certainly the police, it is silent. And this is where it's wrong. And again, the very fact they're not running with RID, which is probably the reason why they don't want to talk about it. But really, with these kind of things, they should be honest about it. It should be lessons learned, and like, we've learned, it won't happen again, and it's drama over with. But now,
but if it was a hobbyist, that airliner would have crashed.
Yeah. Look, we're 17 minutes, we're 18 minutes over the run, so I think we should probably go. Let the hostages. Some people call you dear viewers. I like to think of you as hostages. So blink if you need any help, or show up today's newspaper and all that sort of thing. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, look after yourself.
Oh, wait,
here
this is unusual. Ian's got something else.
There's no breaking communication, and there's still
the comments that are asking. So for people in the comments that are asking, the reason this came up again was the ATC comms came out last week. So yes, pilots saw the drone as well. So, but ATC wasn't aware of whether that was a police drone or not, because at first they thought, "Oh, it must be," and then with people going, "There's a drone, there's a drone, there's a drone," they thought, "Oh, maybe it's not." So I don't know if someone had said to them it's a police drone and then they got unsure of themselves, or they were just guessing. But yeah, pilots did see it, so it did get reported. ATC was aware of it, but they just didn't know whether it was police or not at the time. And obviously there hasn't been the transparency since. So that's how it came up again. You may not.
I could always when he goes like this, I could just boot him out the stream. I've only just realised I could do that. But anyway, there we go. Yeah,
Good entertainment.
it is good entertainment, dear viewer. Wherever you are in the world, look after yourselves. Be careful out there. We'll see you again next week, 2100 gin and tonic, and we didn't sort that. Cheers all. Take care. 2 clicks. Got